Welcome to the first episode of the weekly show, the one-of-its-kind series where we bring stories that matters to you. This is one show where you'll get the weekly roundup of major events that happens in GTA every Friday. So let's get into the highlights of the show today.
Hi guys, I'm Priyanka Chopra and you're watching VNN.
This week, we talk to the Mayor of Brampton, Honorable Patrick Brown, about upcoming infrastructures coming to the city of Brampton. On World Diabetes Day, this week we caught up with the Honorable Mayor of the city of Mississauga, Bonnie Crombie, alongside Adam Masella of Novo Nordisk, Canada, as Mississauga gears up to fight global diabetes. Voice Group's editor-in-chief Bala Menon talks exclusively to Liberal Party leader Stephen Del Duca on Ford government's plan to build Highway 413. Canadian immigration lawyer Shafoli Kapoor shares her insight on the latest changes in knock codes by the Canadian government. And Realtor Parveen Arora talks about the surging housing prices in GTA. Honorable Mayor of Brampton, Patrick Brown, is known for his contributions in the infrastructure development of the city. And now the mayor is pushing for a coveted $35 million cricket stadium in the city. We chatted exclusively with him this week. Listen in.
Good morning. This is the Voice News Network with Bala Menon and Pragya Diwan. And we are in the offices of His Worship Patrick Brown, Mayor of Brampton, the fastest growing city in Canada. Welcome to VNN, Your Worship.
Great to be with you today.
Anyway, I think since the budget proposals have been finalized by the council.
So right now our city staff is preparing the documents for council to review, and we will go through our budget deliberations starting November 29th for the following 2 weeks.
And I was reading that there is a 2.7% property increase for all areas.
So council will vote on that in December. Personally, I don't support tax increases.
Yeah, I believe you froze it last 2 weeks. I think
I believe in a tax freeze. We haven't had any budget deliberations yet, and so the staff have just provided support documents saying what their requests are. And so the way it works is staff will say these are the things we want to do, and the council decides which ones to support and what level of taxation they want. My personal approach has always been the taxes are too high in Brampton, and so I don't support tax increases. We'll have a robust discussion at council, and we will vote on this in usually the second week of December. I would note that I'm proud that Brampton is the only big city in Canada that for the last 3 years has frozen taxes. You've seen taxes go up in other big cities, up and up and up, and we're becoming more competitive in Brampton, and I think that's important. We want to bring businesses and industry to Brampton. We need to have competitive tax rates.
And because in Toronto, I think last week they reduced business property taxes by 15%. Is there any more in Brampton?
So Toronto's taxes have gone up the last few years, and they're anticipated to go up again this year.
So they want to attract businesses, I think, no?
Yeah, so no, they're proposing a tax increase in Toronto.
Yeah. This Ryerson School of Medicine. Have plans been finalized? Budgets allocated for that?
So the province announced last year that they're committing to a med school in Brampton. This will be the first new med school in 100 years in the GTA. Very prestigious, a big win for the city of Brampton. And we're excited to have a med school in our city. Right now they're working on the study to find out where it goes, the type of medical programs they want to teach. Is it going to be more community-based or more specialist-based? Mohammed Lashmi, the President Mohammed Lashmi of Ryerson University is doing these consultations right now across the city. But this is really exciting, and most communities would be green with envy in terms of having a med school.
Where will the land be allocated? Somewhere?
So that's what Ryerson is doing the study on now to determine where in the city it will be. Obviously, there are advantages to be located close to a hospital. And so there's the possibility of the Brampton Civic, near Brampton Civic. There's the possibility of near the new hospital that's being built on the site of the old decommissioned Peel Memorial.
Peel Memorial. Yeah.
And then if you look long term, we believe there needs to be a new hospital in the GTA West quadrant of the city. So they're going to think further term, then they could have something in the West End too. And so it's still to be determined after the consultations where Ryerson plans to put this med school. But I would say wherever it is in Brampton, it's going to be an economic boost to the city.
The Weekly Voice, leader in South Asian news.
So right now we have an allocation for recreation from our development charges. So when there's a new development built, we charge them a fee for recreation. So we have a large fund that we're allocating to recreations, but $268 million that we're going to spend over the next few years. And I'm asking for a portion of that to go towards a multi-purpose cricket facility. I believe we need to make sure our recreation keeps up with the mosaic that we live here in Brampton. And we just approved a new ice facility. We approved a new lacrosse facility. And I'd love to see a cricket facility as well. It is the longest wait time in our recreation department. We have 140 plus teams on a wait list to play cricket. It is growing at a rapid pace in Brampton, and I want to make sure we have the best cricket amenities in the country in our city.
Where is this being planned, or is there a proposal anywhere? The Credit View Park?
So council is still looking at locations. The location recommended from staff was in the south end of the city, but we are looking at other locations as well. The initial proposal was in the east end, and so council is going to have a debate and find out, one, do they want to put new funds into cricket, and two, where it would be. But I have been a champion of increased investments in cricket. I really believe there are incredible opportunities. If we had a facility that could host international events, not only do we have the GT20 lined up for the next 25 years, there's going to be the Commonwealth Games likely happening in Canada, and we could have some amazing test matches between big cricket countries. Imagine having an exhibition match between India and Pakistan in Brampton. I saw the crowds at the GT20, and it was jam-packed. There was excitement for cricket. And just look at some of these matches that we've had recently, and the crowds in every restaurant watching those pivotal games.
And let's talk about the Riverwalk project. How is it progressing? We heard that around $100 million, will be invested in 3 years. That's a lot of money. What do you have to say on that?
So thanks to the Government of Canada, we got a grant to help with disaster mitigation. The Riverwalk project really enables us to build in the downtown. Before, we were curtailed in terms of the height of buildings, the size of buildings, the amount of density we could have. It really made building very difficult because we were on a floodplain, and additionally, there was concerns over, we have some regular serious floods in downtown Brampton, and you sort of have to prevent against those. It's why building was not permitted. And with Riverwalk, with this flood mitigation, we'll be able to create jobs, we'll be able to build in the downtown. So this really unleashes tremendous potential in the downtown, and this is an example of a great partnership between the Government of Canada and the City of Brampton.
The Center for Innovation, that's another ambitious project, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're trying to really focus on the jobs of tomorrow in Brampton. The tech sector is one of the growth sectors internationally. A few years ago, I was touring T-Hub in Hyderabad, India, and I was blown away by the tech ecosystem that was flourishing there. And so we're trying to really replicate that in Brampton. We have Beehive, which is the International Startup Hub. We got the Center for Innovation, which we're going to design stage on. And we're really going to focus on these tech jobs. I should note that it wasn't too long ago the Government of Canada awarded us a grant for our cybersecurity catalyst. Brampton's becoming one of the leading cities in the world when it comes to cybersecurity training. They had the Canada-US Cybersecurity Conference, not in Washington, D.C., not in Ottawa, in Brampton. And so we're really focusing on this niche market of tech jobs. And so when you think of major tech sectors and people think of, California or Seattle, they're going to start thinking about Brampton as well.
Okay, so the next question is about the new electric and other buses that the city is about to buy. So do you think there's enough ridership in Brampton?
So Brampton has the fastest growing ridership in the country. Which is exciting, but we need to make sure we have a modern transit system. So I want to expand our LRT so it connects into the downtown. We're going to have rapid bus transit on Queen Street. But we're also doing something else, and that's electrifying our entire transit fleet. We're going to have the greenest, cleanest transit department in the country. We'll be the first big city to completely transform our buses into electric vehicles. This saves huge cost when it comes to paying for the fuel, but it also reduces carbon emissions. We're going to be an example for other cities, and I think we should be. And I think that there's one obligation that our generation has to the next. It's to pass on the same clean, beautiful environment. And I want us to be good stewards of the environment in Brampton. I want us to be an example. And I'm excited that this council, with the support of other levels of government, is really moving ahead with a green agenda that really shows what's possible. We have an ambitious plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 80%.
And what about this? There's a report saying there's a growing crime rate in Brampton.
The challenges we have in Brampton are similar to the ones we have across the GTA. It used to be that gang activity was predominantly in the city of Toronto. But what we've learned in the previous years is gangs don't care about postal codes or municipal boundaries. And we've seen a level of gang activity that, whether it's preying on the trade, the trafficking of drugs or guns, and now even there's syndicates that are stealing cars. But we've got the right chief of police and Chief Nishan, who is going after these criminal syndicates. And I asked the public for their confidence in Chief Nish, because I believe we've got the right chief, and he's going to break apart these syndicates.
How is the relationship of Brampton with the provincial government now? And your personal relationship with Premier Ford?
So we've got a good relationship with both levels of government right now. We've had more funding from the federal and provincial governments in the last 3 years than at any point in our city's history, probably because we have spoke up more than usual. We have fought for our fair share. And so, I have to give Premier Ford credit. The $1 billion investment into the new hospital is a game changer. The federal government funding our new transit facility and electrifying buses. We're getting some big wins with both levels of government. Yeah. And part of that is building a productive relationship. When I was elected mayor, I said, I don't care if the people in power are from the red party, the blue party, the green party, the orange party, anyone that would work with the city of Brampton, I would work with. And I've been in regular contact with both Prime Minister Trudeau and Premier Ford. They happen to call me frequently, and I appreciate the fact that they're engaged on our issues of importance in our city.
Yeah, because it's always the babies that cry the louder, they get the milk, isn't it? So I think we have to do that.
The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yes, the oil. Yeah, that's true.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for talking to us and giving your valuable time to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Moving on with the major stories this week, Education Minister Stephen Lecce announced that Ontario high schools will shift back to regular semesters no later than February, returning secondary students to a normal schedule for the first time since the onset of the pandemic. The minister says that the school boards will be able to make the change sooner if they have their local public health unit support. This announcement has now gotten the stamp of approval from the Ontario Public School Boards Association. As far as elementary students are concerned, Lecce says many of whom are currently too young to be vaccinated will not see their schedules or cohorting rules change. Print, digital, radio and video. You choose the media. We are the Voice Media Group. Ontario's Liberal Party leader Stephen Del Duca attacks the Ford government plan to build Highway 413. Speaking with Voice Media Group Editor-in-Chief Bala Menon, Del Duca says that not only will the project impact the environment and Ontario's green belt by wiping out farmlands, it would also not yield any benefit in terms of cutting down commuting time or ending gridlock. Check it out.
Welcome to the Voice News Network. We have with us today the leader of Ontario's Liberal Party, Stephen Del Duca. Del Duca was Ontario's cabinet minister from 2014 to 2018, holding the transportation and economic development portfolios and handling them extremely well. Today we will take up the controversial issue of the proposed new Highway 413, of which Mr. Del Duca is a critic. Welcome to VNN, sir.
Well, it's my pleasure to be on with you. Thank you so much.
Anyway, just to start off with, about this proposal nowadays, the government says that Halton, Peel, and York is one of the most congested traffic corridors in North America. And the Highway 413 will be a good infrastructure project. Will it be?
Well, listen, I'm of the four main political party leaders, I am the only one who actually lives in the 905. I live in the city of Vaughan, so unlike Doug Ford and Andrea Horvath and Mike Schreiner, this is a potential highway project that impacts my community directly. And as you pointed out, I spent more than 3 years serving as Ontario's Minister of Transportation, so I understand transportation issues very, very well. And I think Doug Ford is far more focused on his re-election campaign instead of trying to give the people of Halton and Peel and York immediate and urgent relief from the congestion and the gridlock that we have on our roads. Highway 413, for example, in my estimation, would take more than 10 years to build at a cost of more than $10 billion. So it is not a real solution for the hardworking families of the GTA who are stuck in traffic and who need real solutions sooner than a decade from now.
But it is said that this will reduce the commute time and link many of the regions so that economic development can take place here. What do you think?
Well, look, when I was Minister of Transportation, I appointed an independent panel to review this highway as a proposal, and that independent panel reported back that when fully built out, the Highway 413 would save a commuter an average of less than 1 minute per day. Now, Doug Ford has put out alternative figures that suggest that the time savings will be longer than that or bigger than that. I don't think that's true. I don't think Doug Ford is being honest about whether or not this highway is going to help. And let me just point out, as I said a second ago, if you're 45 or 50 years of age and you live in Brampton today, you're going to be eligible to collect CPP before this highway opens. That's not relief. That's not going to help you right now when you need that help. It's also really bad for our environment. If you think about this for a quick second, this highway is going to pave over and destroy part of the greenbelt. It's going to destroy thousands of acres of farmland that we need in this province to help grow some of our local foods. It's going to destroy waterways. It's going to make species at risk be endangered. It's bad news because it's not urgent relief. It's not going to give us the time savings that we need it to. And it's really bad again for the environment. Also, let me just point out, at a cost of more than $10 billion, that's the kind of money that we need right now to invest in publicly funded education in our schools. It's money we need to invest in public transit so more people feel comfortable leaving their cars at home. There are so many different solutions that we could embrace as a government here. Doug Ford has latched on to this idea because some of his friends and supporters who are already quite rich, they're going to get even richer if he builds this highway for them. I would much rather invest in what people really need rather than Doug Ford's pipe dream.
But what about these figures that were given? The highway will create 3,500 jobs each year and will generate up to $350 million in annual GDP. That is a benefit, isn't it?
Yeah, look, that's a benefit, but I can tell you as a former transportation minister, we have needs to build highways all over Ontario in places where there are no alternatives, like Northern Ontario and rural Southwestern Ontario. So if this government wants to invest in highways where they make sense, I'll be the first one to support that. And those highway projects will support job creation and economic growth. But this particular highway, which it's important for me to mention, almost matches Highway 407 in its route. It's only about 5 or 6 kilometers away from the 407. This highway will not produce the benefit that Doug Ford is suggesting it will. The independent study that we commissioned demonstrated that no sufficient time savings, billions of dollars, more than a decade to deliver it. If you're stuck in gridlock right now as we speak, and you're in Halton, or you're in Vaughan, or you're in Brampton, you need relief right away, not in 10 plus years at a cost of $10 billion.
So the alternative is what you are suggesting is just open sort of other avenues of transit?
Yeah, so I think there are ways to widen some of the existing highways that we have. This is part of what I did when I was transportation minister. The widening of the 410, the extension of the 427, the widening of the 401 through Mississauga all the way out to Halton. Those are existing highways, and widening or expanding those makes sense because there's less environmental damage, and obviously the vehicular traffic in the GTA is already very familiar with those highways. I think there's a conversation that the government of Ontario should have with the existing 407 about whether or not we've made full use of that particular corridor. And I will also say, and I announced this last week, I believe that our GO system, the GO train system that we have along what's known as the Milton corridor that serves Mississauga and Milton, I believe we need to deliver two-way all-day GO trains on that corridor. And if people who live in Milton or Mississauga, if they know that the trains will be coming along that corridor every 15 minutes in both directions all day, every day, it just makes it so much easier for them and their neighbors to leave their cars at home. That will reduce congestion on the highways, and it's also really good for the environment. It's a win-win if we do it the right way. Doug Ford is not doing this to help the people of the western half of the GTA. He's doing it to help his rich friends get richer.
I mean, is it because of the environmental impact that that the Liberal government had shelved this project some years ago? I mean,
no, it was two reasons. It was two reasons. Number one, the environmental damage the highway would do, and number two, at a cost of billions of dollars in damaging the environment, it wouldn't actually save people real time. So as a minister of transportation and as someone running to be premier, it makes no sense to me that we're going to invest billions of your dollars and take more than a decade to deliver a highway that's not going to help you. That's backwards. That's completely backwards, especially when that highway is going to make the environment even worse.
No, but the problem is there will be millions of people coming into Ontario and parts of the GTA and the greater Golden Horseshoe over the coming years. I mean, and there will be millions of new drivers. I mean, where do these people?
Why do you make the assumption automatically they're going to be millions of new drivers? I think part of the problem that we have in this province is that we keep building new highways in the GTA. And then every 10 or 15 years, we all get together and say, oh my goodness, all those new highways we keep building don't seem to solve the problem. Isn't this the moment for us to try to do things differently?
So
there is an old saying, if you keep doing everything the same way and you expect a different result, you're looking at things the wrong way. So what I'm saying is, we have existing highway infrastructure that can be expanded, it can be extended. We should look at that. But we also have not built out the public transit that we need. We've also not taken a look, by the way, at how the pandemic has changed the way people work. How many people who used to work in downtown Toronto are working downtown Toronto right now? Not as many. Will that last for 1 year? Will that last for 5? Will that last forever? We don't know. So what I'm saying is, when you're a premier of this province, your job is to look at the whole picture and to make sure that if you're going to invest billions of dollars, that you do it in the way that makes the most sense. And Highway 413 is not the right solution.
But what about our automotive industry? I mean, they're building cars with thousands in it every day. Those have to be sold. Those will be sold. And those people will be having cars. So what happens to them? I mean, so much of gridlock, it's all like a big parking lot.
I think I got to be honest with you. I think you're making an assumption that's a little bit mistaken because you just don't know. And like we see this right around the world. The percentage of people that own vehicles, that own cars in a traditional way is shrinking. It's dropping. Households in the GTA and beyond that used to own many, many cars are now reducing that. Not everybody, not all at once, but there is a, generally speaking, there is a transformation within the world of transportation, which is good news for us economically. And it's also really good news for us in terms of the environment. But just think about this for a quick second. 2-3 years ago, if you and I were having this conversation, you would have said, oh my goodness, look at all the highways in the GTA and look how clogged they are, and look at the transit and how clogged it is. So we do need to build more, for sure. But neither one of us could have predicted how the world of work had changed. Look at the interview that you and I are doing right now. 2 years ago, this interview would have been in person. 2 years ago, had you ever heard of Zoom? I'd never heard of Zoom. And now, over the last year and a half, I've spent more time on Zoom than I've spent with my family. So this is just to say things are changing, things are disrupted. And just because of that, I think one of the responsibilities of a premier is to not just look in the rearview mirror and do things the same old way, but to actually look to the future and say, is there a better way? Is there a way for us to actually untangle the gridlock without destroying the environment and not giving people the real relief that they need? And I think there is a better way. I think Doug Ford is very focused on rewarding his buddies, his friends who are already quite rich. They don't need the government to help them. And what I want is a plan that actually makes sense. And 413, when you look at the evidence just doesn't make sense.
So I think the future will have to be, I think, like flying cars, so that automotive industry will be safe and there will be cars everywhere.
You never know. I mean, I hope if there are flying cars, I hope everybody's really careful because that's a bit scary. But you never know. You never know.
Next, there's this Bradford bypass. I mean, that itself is also quite an expensive project. But the Barrie and the Simcoe community, they favor this. They want it.
Yeah, so in the case of the Bradford bypass, you're quite right. You do mention that there's one big difference, that the municipalities impacted by that highway are actually still, most of them are still fairly supportive of that highway. That's why, and by the way, that's different. For the 413, every municipality except one, the only one is Caledon. Every other municipality in the area of the 413 is now opposed to that highway. In the Bradford bypass case, the local municipalities are still mostly supportive. So what I've said about the Bradford bypass, because it's a lot smaller than the 413, a lot less expensive, I've said we should keep the conversation going, but there's a really important exception here. The studies that are at the heart, the environmental studies that are at the heart of the Bradford bypass are now nearly 20 years old. And we have a lot of information today that we didn't have 20 years ago. So what I've said is, I'm still open to the conversation about the Bradford bypass, but I want those studies to be updated and modernized openly and in a transparent way before a single shovel goes in the ground. And if we do the studies and we update them so they're modern and they're current, and it still says we should proceed, I'm open to that. But if the studies come back and suggest that the highway there doesn't make any sense, I'll strongly urge the local communities to look for alternatives as well.
What is the other opposition party, I mean, the NDP, saying about this? I mean, are they supporting you in this in these arguments?
I think every one of the opposition parties is on the same page here, but it's best for you to ask that question of the NDP.
And do you think the federal government will intervene in this on this issue?
Oh, the federal Liberal government has already said that for the 413 that they want to take a look at whether or not there should be a federal environmental assessment. I don't think we've heard the final answer on that point just yet, but I expect we will in the coming months.
So can they overrule the Ontario government?
They can't overrule necessarily, but they can invoke what's known as a federal environmental assessment, which then slows the whole process down. And the standards are pretty rigorous in the federal EA. So I don't know for sure if that's the direction they're going to go in, but they're definitely looking at it.
You know, another problem is, I mean, this Manufacturers and Exporters Association and lots of other different kind of lobbies they want these sort of more highway projects as part of infrastructure Ontario. I mean, how do we tackle those lobbies and groups and industry bodies?
Well, I think we have to have I've always had a good relationship with the manufacturers and exporters, and the work that they do is so critical to our economy. But I think what's important for a premier is to have a conversation with everybody at the table, to look at solutions that aren't just sort of in a particular way, that you actually look at all the options on the table. How much more can we do with freight rail? How much more is happening with the way that people are shopping, the way that people are living, especially what we've learned during the pandemic. But I definitely want the manufacturers and exporters at the table for that conversation, because I do want the economy to grow. but I want the economy to grow in a way that actually works for people, not just for shareholders, not just for people who are already doing really well. I want it to work for essential workers. I want it to work for families. I want to make sure people have quality of life that actually puts them first. And if we do that, we'll have a strong economy and we'll have a strong society. And that really is what the job of the premier is supposed to be.
And did the government consult with the opposition parties on this subject?
No, not at all.
Okay, that is a very interesting insight you've given us, Mr. Del Duca.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Do you want to add something to this idea?
No, not at all. I've really enjoyed this opportunity and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
I think I got some insight. Our viewers will get some insight into this subject. And thanks a lot, Mr. Del Duca, for coming on to our interview, And
my pleasure.
VNN. Yeah.
Thank you so much and stay safe and healthy.
Thanks a lot. You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Canada has always been ahead in combating diabetes. This year, Canada also celebrates the 100th anniversary of discovering insulin. And keeping the trend up, this week, the city of Mississauga signed the Urban Diabetes Declaration to fight diabetes on a global scale. Here's an exclusive conversation with the Honorable Mayor of Mississauga, Bonnie Crombie, and Adam Masala, Director of External Affairs at Novo Nordisk, Canada. Tune in. Hello and welcome. You're watching Voice News Network. My name is Pragya Devan and today I'm joined by the Honorable Mayor of Mississauga, Bonnie Crombie, and Adam Masala, Director of External Affairs at Novo Nordisk, Canada. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, today is a great day for the city of Mississauga as it has signed the Urban Diabetes Declaration in Council, and Mississauga has become the first municipality to support the city's Changing Diabetes program, which is a concentrated effort to address type 2 diabetes incidence in the city. First of all, Mayor Crombie and Adam, congratulations for this initiative.
Thank you so much. I'm very proud of my council for supporting this. It makes us the first and only active city and the entire council, not just the mayor, that got behind the Urban Diabetes Declaration and joined CCD, Cities Changing Diabetes. It makes me very proud. Of course, we have a lot of community partners and stakeholders to thank as well. And the real work, hard work begins now.
Also, this is a great time to talk about diabetes as Canada marks the 100th anniversary of the discovery of insulin, which revolutionized the treatment of diabetes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a historic year, certainly 2021 being the 100th anniversary of the discovery of insulin in Canada, arguably the most important Canadian innovation. And to mark that with Mississauga and Mayor Crombie's leadership in signing on to Cities Changing Diabetes, I think is incredibly important as we look forward to the next 100 years and hopefully curbing the incidence rates of diabetes in Mississauga and frankly around the world.
So let's talk about the Cities Changing Diabetes program. What is this and why this is important, especially for the residents of Mississauga?
Well, why don't I kick that off, Adam, and then I'm sure you can supplement. But certainly what we are seeing here is that the province of Ontario has the highest rates of type 2 diabetes in all of Canada. And in Peel region, and in Mississauga specifically, our rates are 40% higher than that. So when we analyze what those factors are, why diabetes rates are so high here, there are certainly a number of reasons. And of course, we know that racialized and marginalized communities and groups are at higher risk of type 2 diabetes. So that is something that we are going to better understand and create solutions around using our new network over at CCD. But we also know that the factors that contribute are being overweight or obese, the demographics of our community. In particular, there are certain groups that are at higher risk, and we have to acknowledge South Asian community, Arab community, Black community, Hispanic, and the Indigenous communities certainly are groups that are at higher risk of getting type 2 diabetes. But there are also environmental factors in Mississauga. Once a bedroom community, once a city built around a car, wide boulevards, big streets, our car dependency has really led to fewer people being active and getting out and getting exercise and walking. That car dependency has really one of those key factors of diabetes as well, including the sedentary lifestyle. So our goal has been to build more complete communities, places where people can live, work, recreation, exercise, and a livable, walkable city, a city where people can get outside and walk. And of course, with a big focus on active transportation, which includes multi-use trails and increased building of cycling paths and bike routes, etc.
I think it's important to just even give some of the context around the fact that Mississauga is the 40th city to join this network. So this program kicked off in 2014 with, I think, 4 or 5 cities. It's now grown to Mississauga being the 40th. And so I think there's a huge well of innovation there that Mississauga can tap into. Our Canadian headquarters is in Mississauga, so we're tremendously proud to bring this here. But it's about a lot of the things that Mayor Crombie just alluded to, connecting cities to resources, bringing community stakeholders together, stakeholders who wouldn't normally have these types of conversations around chronic disease, to try and come up with better solutions. Mayor Crombie alluded to some of those solutions that we've seen in 39 of the other cities, but there's also going to be very specific things around Mississauga. We know that we're one of the most diverse cities in the world, arguably. So with that kind of background, there are social determinants of health. There are other things that we need to tackle. So a big part of this goes far beyond the mayor's office and Novo Nordisk, and really talks to our outstanding community partners, and their involvement in this is going to be critical.
The Weekly Voice, leader in South Asian news.
Adam, you spoke to us this summer about cities changing diabetes program, and you mentioned that Mississauga is also taking the lead with its novel food and beverage policies, its cycling network, and much more. Can you talk more about it?
Yeah, I think those are great examples, and they're examples that if they're, the idea of health being built into every policy, so health as a part of urban planning, health as a part of community engagement, health as a part of economic development, like these are the types of conversations where, because we know that, and Mayor Crombie alluded to the trajectory of diabetes in Ontario, in Mississauga, and this is a global issue, right? There's not an urban center in the world where we see the diabetes rates moving in a positive direction. The global trend is not great. So how do we start to bend the curve on that? And how do we do it in a way that actually resonates with people in communities where they're getting a better either standard of living, feeling more connected? We know there's other issues around social isolation as one example, time poverty. Like these are some of the themes that we're seeing in some of the other cities, and how do we apply that and contextualize that in Mississauga?
And the Canadian Parliament passed this law C-327 in mid-June this year to establish a national framework for diabetes in the country that will improve prevention, management, and research into diabetes. And today, the announcement for Urban Diabetes Declaration has come out. So what is included in this announcement? Mayor Crombie, if you can enlighten us.
I'm not as familiar with the government legislation federally. Maybe Adam is.
Yep. So that's a great point, Pragya. Like Bill 237 is basically the requirement to establish a national diabetes framework across the country. But at the end of the day, it will come down to public health and cities and provinces to implement that. So that might be a national standard that will get set up between now and June of 2022. But ultimately, it comes down to communities themselves, local health authorities, local community members, and provinces to actually implement whatever that's going to look like on the ground. And that's a big part of what Cities Changing Diabetes helps to address.
We may want to give a shout out to one of our local Peel MPs, MP Sonia Sidhu, that I know was, had a leadership role in the development of this framework. So I want to thank Sonia Sidhu for the great work she's doing in Ottawa with respect to diabetes, because I know that was her background before entering Parliament.
So the statistics say that estimated 11.5 million Canadians are living with diabetes or pre-diabetic conditions right now. And if I'm not wrong, this is the first for Canada to participate in such an initiative. Am I right?
City of Vancouver had participated in the past, so they're not actively engaged, and it was the mayor, not the entire council, that got behind it. So, we are very hopeful that other Canadian cities will now follow our lead and join on as full councils. And we may also want to thank and acknowledge that Nova Nordisk made a significant contribution investment into University of Toronto Mississauga campus to build the Nova Nordisk Network for Healthy Populations, which will go a long way to addressing numerous global diseases and help reduce them, type 2 diabetes being one of them. So it will also bring public health experts together for study and to collect data, etc. So we're very excited about that. But at the local level, there are many initiatives that cities, municipalities can take. We talked about a few of them. One of the first ones we did was eliminate unhealthy choices in our vending machines. So carbonated drinks and the kinds of foods that we had available at one point in our cafeterias, creating that cycling master plan so that we can be sure that more bike routes are being built into our city, as well as multi-use trails. The emphasis on fitness throughout all our trails and fitness at our community centers, even through our economic development strategy, ensuring that we're bringing in investment into our city that will lead to better fit choices. Healthy by design. So by that, we mean environmental design, and that's architectural framework so that cities are more walkable, using that grid pattern so that makes the city smaller, reducing the size of our streets, etc. So community gardens, urban agriculture, these are all things that will lead to healthier lifestyles and more choice with respect to healthier health and well-being, shall we call it.
And talking about the investment, I read that Nova Nordisk and the Mississauga campus of the University of Toronto have invested about $40 million to set up the Nova Nordisk network for healthy population at the UTM campus. Adam, can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, I sure can, and that's intended as a global center of excellence in public health research. So often what we find is that because there's no silver bullet in how you tackle applied research to actually have an impact on people's lives, translating that stuff that happens in the research space into actual communities where it can be helpful. That's really the focus of the network, and we're very pleased to support that along with our partners at the University of Toronto. That will become a global center of excellence in public health research in diabetes and applied diabetes interventions that hopefully does a lot of good for millions of people around the world is the intention. So we're not doing that in other cities. We're not doing that in other countries. That is a one of a kind thing as part of our commemoration of the 100th anniversary of insulin. But to make sure that that 100th anniversary isn't just a history project looking in the rearview mirror, we also want to talk about, okay, let's get a little bit more serious about disease prevention. So we're tremendously proud of that and our work with Mayor Crombie and her team as well on CCD Mississauga, because we think those two things will complement each other quite nicely.
So, Mayor Crombie, as you mentioned, the impact of type 2 diabetes in Mississauga is significantly higher than the provincial average. And 1 in 6 adults living in Peel region from ages 45 to 64 has type 2 diabetes, rising to 1 in 3 after the age of 65. So, my question is how Mississauga will benefit from joining the city's Changing Diabetes program?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And it certainly gives us a vast network of resources through the information hub. And we can learn by all the best practices that have been implemented in our partner cities, those other 40 cities that are already part of CCD. We've already been speaking about today at our roundtable discussion, this faith network in Houston and how they targeted their members and the message that they gave. So it gives us this bank of knowledge, really, a network of community that are like-minded, that really want to solve this issue and work together in doing so. So we'll learn about all the best practices that has worked in other cities and the other global cities. But of course, Mississauga is different, and we'll identify how we are different and what possible solutions could help us bend that curve and reduce the incidence of diabetes and type 2 diabetes specifically in Mississauga based on the characteristics that I outlined earlier of our city.
And what will be the expected impact on Mississauga after joining this program?
Well, certainly we'd like to see over the long term to reduce these rates, to bend that curve and to see that, when we have 40% higher incidence of diabetes than even the provincial average, this is quite stark and quite alarming. So I think it's very important that this work begin and we work with our community partners and our stakeholders to ensure that something is done and that we bring in some of these best practices to really change that trajectory.
Thing I would add to that is the fact that we've talked a lot about COVID. We've all lived through a pandemic now, which is really a pandemic in the case of COVID that happened in fast forward. I just heard it described recently as diabetes is a pandemic in slow motion. This could take 10, 15 years to start to bend that incidence curve on diabetes rates. But we have to do it now because it threatens sustainability of health systems in Mississauga and frankly around the world. And that's really the intent here, to play the long game and to really engage with those community partners that are critical here. We've seen this, Mayor Crombie mentioned the faith-based communities in Houston. There's dozens of other examples that we've seen. Which of those examples we want to prioritize in Mississauga, that's up to the other partners to decide, what is fit and best for Mississauga for our interests here. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mayor Crombie and Adam, for taking out your valuable time and talking to us. I'm sure other urban centers will now take lead from the city of Mississauga and will join this initiative. Thanks again.
Thanks very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Canada's inflation rate jumped to a new 18-year high of 4.7% last month, led by sharply higher prices for energy. Statistics Canada says that 4.7% rate is the highest since February 2003. As inflation rate soars high, the prices of food and dairy products are going to get higher too. Check our next report to know more. Have you been thinking lately that no matter how much you improve your budgeting skills, your monthly expenditures are rising as ever? I would like to tell you that it is not your imagination. It is a reality. Thanks to the rise in inflation rates. And now with the prices of food and dairy products skyrocketing, imagine how difficult it is going to be for an average Canadian to put food on table. Hi, I'm Pragya and let's talk about the increasing prices of food and milk products in Canada and what it means for an average consumer. The latest report from the Canada Food Price is out. It forecast an overall increase in food prices of between 3 and 5%. A family of 4, for example, is spending $13,907 in food this year, which is $695 more than last year. And mind you, that doesn't include food service.
Within the food prices, there are many categories. As I said, it's a very, because when economists or Bank of Canada look at these indexes or these important terms, they don't look at only one piece of information. They look at general price trend across many products and many services. So food is definitely one of them.
Print, digital, radio, and video. You choose the media. We are the Voice Media Group. The report from CFP anticipates that several food categories will see even greater change. Let's look at these categories. According to CFP report, the price of bakery goods has increased 3.5 to 5.5%. Meat prices are up by 4.5 to 6.5%. And to top it all, now the price of milk and dairy products is expected to increase sharply after the Federal Canadian Dairy Commission recommended a record 8.4% increase in wholesale milk prices. The increase in prices would migrate to other dairy products as well, including yogurt, ice cream, and cheese.
By increasing the payment to the farmers, at the end product, it increases three-fourths. In other words, they're getting 8.1% increase from February 22 for their milk. And then Dairy Farmers of Canada takes over and adds the marketing functions and everything else. And then it comes to the retailer who adds their logistics and transportation and business and retail margins. Then it adds up maybe 3 times. So in other words, 8.1% comes out to about 24% in some products.
Now, as everything is becoming expensive in the market, it is very important to understand the role of inflation in this and how this is impacting the food prices.
Inflation is a very commonly used word, and there are two definitions, of course. One is technically what is inflation, which is a consumer price index, CPI. But for generally for common man, inflation is nothing but your rising prices. The reason I said two definitions because technically, when you say consumer price index, it includes a lot of things in that, a lot of calculations. But in general terms, it reflects the increase in prices for goods and services a common man uses.
Let's talk about the factors responsible for such hikes in food prices. Pandemic. Pandemic has been an undeniable factor in surging prices. It is responsible for changing how a consumer shops. People have become more conscious and disciplined in terms of buying food items. The shoppers turned to online grocery shopping in waves when the pandemic hit, and grocers appear to be banking on that trend even now.
Basic factor was the hoarding. First 3 months, people were buying unlimited quantities, although they don't need it. Their basements are full of that. Now, so if you buy 3 times what you need, that means there is 1/3 available for everybody else. So that is not good, and that raised the pricing.
Climate change has had a significant influence too on the food pricing, with devastating events like the California wildfires wreaking havoc in the produce aisle.
Agricultural products basically depend on the climate and also the labor. Those are the two major factors. You can grow, but if you don't cut it on time, it goes waste. And if you don't ship it on time, it goes waste.
Distribution costs are another factor. The supply crisis and delay in distribution of food and products have contributed immensely to changing prices.
Whenever there's a shortage, demand and supply tells you that supply is less, the demand is more, the price goes up. So that is direct relationship. Second thing was the cost of labor. Lockdown has put people in the house and the labor was not available, cost of labor. And the third thing was cost of transportation. Now the driver's not available, price of gas went up, price of operation went up, restriction in deliveries, all those costs were added onto this during the pandemic and even some right now.
It's a very simple theory of demand and supply. The supply is low or the demand is high. If the gap is bigger than it was earlier, the prices are higher. So economists and of course, as I mentioned, Bank of Canada governor, those people are having this view that when the supply chain problems get resolved and supply become normal and demand also a little bit higher because people haven't spent money in the last 1 year and 1.5 years, so they are having to spend more right now, so it will become normal.
Now that we know that these prices are going to remain high even in 2022, let's see how businesses are seeing this change. Many companies are now talking to pass these high prices to the consumers. While keeping their businesses afloat is the biggest goal for these manufacturers, but they also don't want to scare the consumers. So they adopt various practices when the prices go high. The first way is to absorb increased cost, which is not a profitable option for long run. The second way is to pass the increased cost to the consumers. And the third way is shrinkflation, where the manufacturers decrease the amount of product in packaging but keeps the prices same. Let's talk about the solutions now. What can we do to avoid such hikes in prices in the future? For businesses, investing in new technologies that can help in producing efficient and sustainable output. New technologies can also help with the rising labor costs and other supplies and distribution issues. As shoppers, we need to be smart. We need to focus more on the cost. Try and go for in-house brands of the store than national brands, which are mostly expensive.
Smaller brands or no-name brands or store name brands are always cheaper than the major brands. But if the difference is bigger, then the consumer might try it. Now, the onus is on the people, private brand or the store brand or the smaller brands, is to provide a value for the product, the similar taste profile. And then they have a chance of gaining it. And it's an excellent opportunity for them to get the trial and switch the consumers.
And though it is always advisable to go for fresh produce, buying frozen foods and vegetables can help save some money as well. These money-saving measures are important as things might continue like this at least for a year.
I think for sure, at least for 1 year, things will remain like this. The only reason it can be under control, inflation can come down, is because Bank of Canada or any central bank in any country, US, India, anywhere, they do keep a good close eye and track on these CPI index, consumer price index or inflation, and they try to bring it down to the extent possible by doing a lot of policy measures. So obviously, it will not remain at that level. It should come down.
So the only golden advice for the consumer at this time would be to be as smart as possible when buying from stores. Compare prices, go for discounts and coupons as much as you can. Refrain from wasting food and help the needy whenever you can. If you like content like this, hit that bell icon and subscribe to our channel, and thanks for watching. While we are still on the surging prices of food and dairy products, the housing market in GTA is on fire too. I got in touch with Realtor Parveen Arora this week to understand the reason behind these surging house prices in GTA. Check it out. This is Pragya Diwan, and today we are joined by Realtor Parveen Arora, who has spent 2 decades in the real estate market in Canada and have earned accolades like Circle of Legends, Remax Diamond Club member, etc. We are pleased to have you here today, sir.
Thanks, Pragya. Thanks for having me here.
So, the statistics released by Canadian Real Estate Association show that national home prices, they have set a new annual record with prices up by 18%, and I'm not even kidding, 18%. So tell me what is happening, like what is happening in the real estate market?
Pragya, it's a very good question. It's not only 18%. 18% is the overall growth according to Canadian Real Estate Association. But if we see in certain particular pockets, some of the pockets even is more than 18%, And the biggest reason why these prices are going up is a very simple logic, supply and demand. Because there is not enough supply and there is a lot more demand in the real estate market. So that's why prices are continuously going up.
As a regular resident in Canada, explain it to me, break it down for me, why every time there is this surge in housing prices, what happens? Like, is it, as you mentioned, it's about the demand and supply, but if you can break it down for me and for the regular viewer.
See, Pragya, it's not in all the Canada. Is only in certain parts of Canada, especially if we talk about the GTA market. GTA market is always on fire, I would say, all the time prices are going up. And the biggest reason why GTA market is always on higher side, because a lot of people are coming to Canada, and out of those people, majority of them, they stay in GTA. There are multiple reasons why people like to stay in the GTA area. So there is a consistent demand in GTA area, and when there is a consistent demand, and if we really see, Pragya, if the new construction is not enough in GTA, because there is not more lands available in GTA, and even the lands those are available, those are high density zoning. There is not possibility to put the low density or low rise properties over there. So there is a consistent demand in GTA, and that's why this is the biggest reason the prices are always going up in GTA.
But I also read that according to Real Estate Association data, the listing properties have climbed up like 3.2% from September to October, and I understand this is the national data.
That's right.
So how is GTA doing in that comparison?
In GTA, the listing numbers is still low. And if we really see, especially the low rise number is very low in GTA. If I really talk about, on the west side where there's a lot of South Asian community, Brampton and Mississauga. Right now in Brampton, if I just give the breakdown, In Brampton right now, I think it's about 250 to 260 listings only in the market, and the normal number is about 16 to 1700. If we see where the normal number is 16 to 1700 and right now it's only 250 or 260 listings available, definitely there is a lot more demand because that number is very low. So that's why the listing number in GTA is very low compared to the other parts of Canada. Yes, condo market is a little bit different in GTA. There is a lot more inventory in condo market in GTA.
And we did talk about the high prices, but the sales are going up too. And we are still in the pandemic. People are struggling. There are less jobs, but still the sales are an all-time high. What do you have to say on that?
The sales is high because, let's say if there is only 250, 260 listings in the market in Brampton area, and when there was 1700 listings in the market, even that time, the number of sales were the same. But now if we really say, according to the listings available, sale is much higher because that time there was 1700 listings available. Now it's only 250, 260. So the sales number is definitely high because they just look at the existing inventory and what is the sales happening. And the other part which is changing right now, before this, let's say if any property comes in the market, sometime it was taking 4 to 6 weeks to sell that property. Now it's 4 to 6 days.
Yeah.
So that also making the sale lot more faster.
I also read a report by someone who was trying to buy a house. He said that earlier it was a thing like if you go and see a house and then you can call that person again that after 15 days I want to see again. But now it's not possible. You see it once and then after 5 days that property is gone.
Not only that, Pragya, I remember, because I've been through few cycles in this business. Before this, there was times when somebody was coming to see the property, we were very happy, somebody is coming to see the property. And now what we are doing, we are giving 15 minutes window or half an hour window. There is no second showing. In that 15 minutes, either you decide you are buying it or you are not buying it. There is no home inspection conditions. I don't think so lately this year I see any home inspection happening on our listing. All the listings are sold firm. There is no home inspection, no financing condition. People are buying firm.
So it's like the housing market is actually on fire.
Absolutely, it's on fire.
So one more thing I got to know that many young buyers are coming into this market and they are people who are just starting out in their career. So it's not like that they have a lot of money. What do you think is the contributing factor in such people getting into the market?
The biggest change during this pandemic which came in the market, people have a lot more confidence in real estate compared to the other investments. Before this, people were, especially the young people, they were doing the investments in other areas too. But now people have a lot more confidence in real estate market. The reason why, they see around themselves, somebody bought a property 6 months ago and now the price is 200,000 up. They bought properties sometimes last year and now the price is 300,000 to 400,000 up. They never saw this growth before. So right now, if you go to anywhere, you talk to anyone and you will see they will right away show some interest in real estate. And young people, they are also coming forward to buy real estate because they also know that if they are not able to buy now, it will be more difficult for them to buy after 4 or 5 years.
So are there any incentives that the government is giving to help these young buyers?
I don't think so there is any incentive from the government for the young buyers. The only thing is this, what is happening especially for the young people, because they are not able to buy the bigger property. They are mostly starting with the condos or the small townhouses. And the good part, what is happening, before this, builders were not building that many townhouses, but now lot more inventory coming for the smaller stacked townhouses, condos and traditional townhouses. So they have lot more options now to buy. Before this, we used to have mostly a few blocks of towns in any subdivision, but the major portion was detached home or semi-detached. Semi-detached you won't see anymore because that doesn't make any viability for the builders to put semi-detached now. So majority of the inventory which is coming in the market in pre-construction, that is the townhouses. So where the lot more young people, they can afford those houses.
leader in South Asian news.
And we are talking about high prices. Let's talk about inflation now. Today only the report came that Statistics Canada says that the inflation rate has gone up to 4.7%.
That's right.
I want to know how this is going to impact the housing market.
Whenever inflation rate goes up, Pragya, houses prices always go high. That always go high, because what inflation mean is this: the less value of the same dollar, right? And the house prices, whenever there is a higher inflation, it goes up, and that's what we are seeing in the market. And the way situation looks like, even lot more people are coming to Canada. The way immigration is opening up, I think in coming few months, I will say in GTA market, the prices will still continue going up.
So even if the GTA market, Toronto is in the housing bubble, so it's not going to impact the sales?
I don't think so. It's the housing bubble, because I am listening this thing from a long time. But if you really see, there is lot more demand and there is not enough inventory. Inventory always comes from the new construction. And if we really see, last year we were doing some analysis, I think maybe about 5,000 to 6,000 low-rise lots came in the market. That is nothing, 5,000 to 6,000 new lots, because new inventory creates the inventory in the resale homes. I don't think so. Even this year it will be, in the coming year, there will be lot more pre-construction coming in GTA market. We don't think so that there will be any market
Major
bubble
impact.
or there will be any impact on the market.
Okay, so that brings me to my last question. This is something that everybody wants to know. Like, whatever the development is there currently in the real estate market, how it is going to impact a new buyer?
It is getting more difficult for the new buyers to buy the house in GTA. That's for sure. And the impact of that is the surrounding areas. If we really see outside towns, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, London, even the prices are going up there too, because people are not able to buy here, so they are going to the other locations. I think what I used to hear few years back, that Toronto market is very low compared to the London and New York and those cities. I think the time is coming now, we will be similar to those cities.
Yeah.
I don't think so it will be easy to buy a house in the GTA market now, especially for the first time buyers.
So because you have spent 2 decades in this industry, what advice would you give to such people?
The advice, Pragya, the best advice is this: whenever is possible, even a smaller property, buy it. Because the longer you will be waiting, it will be more difficult to buy the property in GTA market. Whenever is possible. I'm not saying that you have to stretch or you have to take extra pressure for that one. If you are able to buy a smaller property, buy a smaller property. Even if you are not able to buy any low-rise property, buy at least a condo. Even the condos those were selling 2 years back, now almost double the price. So it's everywhere. And if people are, let's put this way, it's a very simple logic. What we are seeing now, there are multiple offers happening on the properties. Let's say if there is one townhouse and there are 12, 13 offers came on that property, only one buyer is buying that property. The other 10, 12 people, they are not getting that property. What option they have? They will be going either out of the town or they will be buying something else, maybe a smaller property or a condo. So my advice is this, especially the first time buyers, whenever they get the opportunity, it's better to secure something. That way they will enter in the market, because then after a few years, if they want to upsize, their property will be also appreciating with the market. So it will be much easier for them to buy the second property.
I think it's a wonderful advice. Thank you, sir, for joining us and giving your valuable time to us today.
Thanks, Pragya. Thank you.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced that his government would repeal the 3 farm laws in the upcoming parliament session. The farmers have welcomed the move, but they are yet to decide on ending their agitation. VNN's editor-in-chief Bala Menon and Ambassador Parveen Verma discussed the Indian government's latest decision to repeal the 3 farm laws. Take a look.
Hi, welcome to VNN. We are with us today Ambassador Parveen Verma as part of our discussion series, and today we'll be looking at this at the withdrawal of the contentious farm bills in India, the 3 farm bills that were supposed to usher in the second green revolution and change the entire agricultural sector and industry in India. Unfortunately, or fortunately, unfortunately rather, The bills have been now repealed, and we'll see. What do you think about it, Ambassador Verma? What happened? What is behind this this sort of? Is it a regressive act by the government?
Thank you, Bala, once again to have me here, and it's wonderful to talk on these subjects with you. And coming to this subject of repealing of the laws, it is a political move. Essentially, it's a political move by Prime Minister Modi, who is going to face elections in a couple of years, next year, especially in Punjab and in UP, and both these states are involved in the main protests which has happened. Well, as you said, one can talk about it as unfortunately or fortunately, depending upon which side you are on. Personally, I would again feel that it is unfortunate because the farm bills were supposed to be, the bills would liberalize the Indian agricultural industry. Yes. The same thing which had happened to the Indian industries, the economic revolution which happened, reforms during the Narasimha Rao's period. This was similar where farmers were sort of given liberty not to go through intermediaries and go directly to the big companies, could negotiate the price and keeping their market situation all into view. The three laws took into care their market situation. And this was vigorously protested by some interested lobbies, and they did it successfully. And the farmers were drawn into this dispute, and nobody could explain to them properly. One mistake I would say here that
that was what happened here. There was no proper explanation.
The implementation of the laws were a bit brisk. And the optics were not very good in the sense that it was rushed through the parliament and people were not prepared for it. People had not, politicians had not prepared the people for the change. And therefore, the opportunity was there for opposition and other interested party to get into it, especially the media, the middlemen over there.
Although even the Congress party and I think most of the parties in Punjab also, they've always wanted these same reforms, and the Congress had put all these same things in their manifesto.
Yeah, that is true. So, most of the parties who have come to power have one stage or the other ordered for or rather proposed these amendments, and many states already have it.
So these were just sort of it was a political opposition, not a reason-based opposition.
My feeling would be that way. Others feel it otherwise. But then this was a time when apparently the government felt that being the election time. Yes. Although this protest could have gone on ad infinitum because it was withdrawn and it was not implemented under Supreme Court laws. And the stalemate was there. The farmers said first withdraw, and the government said discuss, and nothing was happening. Now with the elections in forefront, I think Modi took this step and repealed these laws so that he can fight elections on an equal term, on a terms where he is not unnecessarily bogged down by the protesters, because that would have been an unnecessary irritant for him in contesting the elections.
But what if the farmers or those who are leading the protests, they do not go back home? They continue sitting on protests, asking for more demands. Like now they want a sort of MSP guarantees, and there could be more demands coming up in the near future, isn't it? Then what happens then?
That would be an attempt, but now it would not sort of wash in people's eyes that one way, because now their demands have been met. They should go back. If they want to start a protest de novo, they are free to do that. Everybody is free to that, and they can find causes. But then here the responsibility will be on the farmers, and therefore the ruling party will have a lever to say that, see, they are obstructing your business.
Another problem is, will this set a precedent for future action by, say, mobs It will be sort of a mobocracy, isn't it? The legislative power of the parliament is being curtailed. If the parliament passes any law, tomorrow, say 1,000 people can come and close the borders of Delhi and say, we want this law repealed. Tomorrow, another 1,000 or 2,000 people can come and say, we want all the income taxes, collection stopped. We are not going to pay income tax. Will the government allow this to happen then?
No, as I told you in the beginning, the optics when this amendment was brought through was not correct, in the sense that the bills were passed through in a rush with a voice vote where there could have been legitimate discussions on it. So if you do a thing the fast track, then you have to bear the consequences of the fast track movement. If a legislature is passed through regular procedure, I don't think any party who has gone through the procedure, legislative discussions, parliamentary discussions, committee discussions, and then you pass the bill through a regular vote, nobody has a say. So I don't think it will result into mobocracy, but it will result into people learning lessons. For the government party to learn lessons that this is not done. You cannot push through a reform like this. For the opposition, yeah, this is a cost they have to pay, and they have to learn from this, because now at this point of time, the opposition is on a back foot, because Modi has taken an appropriate moment to repeal the laws, has appealed to the people, has apologized profusely. So he will get an upper hand as far as the coming elections are concerned in terms of this strategy is concerned.
Print, digital, radio, and video. You choose the media. We are the Voice Media Group.
The irony is that now the Congress party and its sort of youth leader Rahul Gandhi has proclaimed tomorrow as Vijay Kisan Day, so that to celebrate this victory over the government.
Yeah, they can celebrate, but to what end? That is true. Yeah,
of course
they will claim victory.
He can say he's the #1 farmer in the country.
Yeah, they can claim victory. Victory is that the striking farmers have won their point. That is true, but to what end? It is a political move. To what end the politics has benefit the farmers and the parties supporting the farmers, or Modi or the ruling government, will depend upon the elections which are coming in. Even now, as we speak, there are real alignment of forces now, and Captain Amrinder Singh has
said he's welcomed this, and then
I'm sure he will take the credit of giving advice to the Prime Minister, and one can foresee some sort of alignment between his party and the BJP, and that would be a formidable force to take on the other parties which are at present not united.
But I think AAP is the most confused now. They don't know what to do, I think.
AAP has always been confused, but then in Delhi they have been showing some results, so they have retained their popularity. And Kejriwal with his gimmicks has kept himself.
I think what I foresee, I think now there could be more agitations coming, say repeal Article 370, and maybe another 1,000 people will gather outside Delhi. And tomorrow it will be the repeal the CAA, and
we will see that. I don't think so. These will happen. As I said, there have to be lessons to be learned. Contentious legislations, improperly passed legislations will face this sort of problem, and there will be a situation where this will be quoted as a precedent.
This affected only, I think, only the 3 or 4 states in northern India, because in southern parts of India, in western India and eastern India, the farmers were quite happy with these laws.
Yeah.
So
more than
80% of them, more than 80%. And these farmers in Punjab, Haryana, some parts of Uttar Pradesh, they were protesting, but there was no shortage of any food anywhere. It's all over the country. Farmers were sowing their crops, reaping, and selling.
We all understood that this was a political movement where there was strength, and the strength was because of some mistakes made by the ruling government in propagating this law in a rush, and not sort of explaining it properly, presenting its ideas properly to the people. which led other forces to overtake it, including divisive forces like the Khalistanis from outside, funding from abroad.
Funding support from abroad, and I don't know
all these things did take its toll. So Modi has to take lessons from this.
I think he will. I have a feeling he will. I don't think he'll take a step like this without thinking about it for a long time, isn't it?
Maybe, yes. He will take a lesson. He's an astute politician, and he would definitely.
I have a feeling he'll wait until all this these elections are over, especially the Uttar Pradesh election, and then maybe bring these laws back in a sort of an incremental manner, in clause by clause or something.
Something will happen, because ultimately, as you have also said, that these laws have been proposed by Congress and other parties in different state governments in different forms, which have proposed liberalization of the farm sector. Yes. Farming is the biggest sector in India, and it is still in this gold fashion with intermediaries, and the farmers are dependent upon intermediaries. The biggest financiers to these farmers were the intermediaries who were losing their jobs. Now, slowly, people have to be made conscious about it. The farmers have to be made conscious about it. There has to be a public projection of what the laws actually meant. And maybe slowly in the next term, or even successive government, wherever it is, these laws have to come. These liberalization has to come. And the criticism that the big companies will take over the small ones and the small farmers will be wiped out was there when we did economic liberalization, when they said that the small baniyas, other neighborhood shops will go. Nothing went up.
Everything went up. Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. So it will come ultimately. I hope so. And because India being an agricultural country, this liberalization has to come one way or the other in a more transparent manner.
Okay, we'll let off India for the time being and then come back to Canada. That's our place. Now, Prime Minister Trudeau was in Washington attending the North American Leaders Summit. And what do you think? What happened there?
Yeah, the three amigos, as they say, they met.
Amigos, yeah.
The amigos met, as they said, and then after the renegotiation of NAFTA, what they call is the Mexico, Canada, America agreement, or the Canada, Mexico, USA agreement. That has been sort of talked about, and they have sort of discussed various points. But one basic issue which has evolved out, nothing much has come on the media. Things have been very quiet. But what I heard yesterday was the Americans' protectionism has sort of taken the front line. And there was an issue between Canada and USA about the electrical vehicles.
Electrical vehicles, and I think the US is already insisting that most of the American cars, the batteries and the electrical whatever utilities needed will be manufactured in the United States. While Canada and provinces like Ontario, where the auto industry is so powerful, there's an e-vehicle movement going on in Ontario. We want to make this our hub.
Yeah, but Trudeau was very clear during his press briefing yesterday that the auto industry economy between USA and Canada is so interlinked, and supply chains are so interlinked that maybe one component would have crossed the Canadian border 3 or 4 times before it was finally prepared and put in. So that sort of made in USA and Canada differentiation can really not be very clearly made. But the main issue was that USA proposed to give tax rebates to Americans to American manufactured electrical vehicle, which would give an advantage to the American vehicles, and the Canadian vehicle manufacturers will lose. Once they lose, the jobs goes, and it's a vicious cycle.
Both Canada and Mexico have protested this, but what do you think that the US will sort of backtrack on this policy? I have a feeling they might not.
You see, the problem with America now is that Biden is facing the biggest drop in popularity for any American president who has taken over in the near past. And he has to control that. So he has to take some populist moves, which he could satisfy his American population, and this is one of them. So I do not see much future in seeing in that Biden might withdraw from something. Maybe, of course, Trudeau has been insisting that they are discussing and various discussion points they will be taking up this issue of supply chain problems and distinction between American made and Canada made, with the parts being sort of mixed here and there. But however optimistic we the Canadians may be, Biden would follow his own political future and try to give some sort of benefits to the Americans.
Affect Canadian industry. I mean, that's the auto industry is one of the biggest employers.
Canadians are on the forefront of converting their car industry into electric industry by, I think the commitment is 2050 or 2060, where all cars produced would be electrical. So that way, if this happens, it will be a great setback for that target and larger term climate change, because all the targets have to be met. And the zero emission, of course, has gone out for a 6 because people didn't agree on COP26. Somebody said 2050. The agreement itself, the final communique says around mid-century. I think Modi said 2070. So there have been different targets over there. But if these things, protectionism starts, then this will be another hit to the Canadian attempt to.
One of the strange thing I noticed was, I mean, the American media generally, I think, ignored this trilateral summit. Because I think they were more focused on Biden's meeting, or virtual meeting with China's President Xi Jinping. And that is it was always, I think, that media, and I think the general population or the general political circle in the US is now, I think, focused only on China, but the US is losing its position in the world.
And, you would be the better judge to
that's what I feel. I mean, I think that's what is occupying, I think, mind of most American thinkers.
Well, you see, sitting here in Canada, we think that we occupy a position,
important place in the American
psyche, which is not true. When it's if in Biden's mind, it is another country which is a small country. The economy is much smaller. So he has to concentrate more on his own stability, number one, his own popularity, and then to see that the American position in the world remains untouched, and because the Chinese are gaining fast,
very fast and quick. And not only that, they are also threatening the American role across, not just in the Pacific, across the world rather.
Yes. Economically, militarily, everywhere. Yes.
And now, last I heard was the Chinese were sending some warships to cross, I think, the Arctic or somewhere where the American interests.
So Chinese are very good in throwing these irritants. Just sort of pinpricks for here and there, just one over Taiwan, one over Arctic, which results into nothing, but it brings into forefront their misadventure, giving them in some sort of political advantage and trust.
Anyway, I think that should be fine for today, this discussion today. And we'll continue this in next week with another subject later.
We will be here together as and when something comes to discuss.
Thank you, Ambassador Parveen.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Immigration has been a hot topic for many people in Canada, especially during the pandemic. And now the new data from ICCC shows that Canada has a backlog of nearly 1.8 million immigration applications. I chatted exclusively with Canadian immigration lawyer Shafoli Kapoor to know more about the situation. So the new data from ICCC shows that Canada has a backlog of nearly 1.8 million immigration applications, and the wait time for visa approvals are taking longer than ever. So what do you think the scenario looks like for students and workers who are sitting in their respective countries and waiting for their visa?
So there has been a lot of frustration among students. I personally feel that student visas are still being processed, but permanent resident applications, especially for federal skilled worker under the Canadian experience, under the express entry system, as well as the spouse open work permit applications are heavily impacted. And when I say heavily impacted, we're talking about applications that have been in process since 2019. I personally have clients who've been waiting since the since the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, who are waiting for their PR applications to be processed. And I also have a huge amount of spousal open work permit applications based on international students in Canada and workers in Canada whose spouses are in their home countries and the applications are not being processed. The frustration levels are very high. I've also come to, experience and notice that many of these applications that are in process, especially the spousal open work permit applications, are the decision on those applications ultimately is coming as negative. And the reason is that a lot has changed in this 18-20 months. And what has changed is, I'll give you an example. For example, a person who's applied for a spousal open work permit based on their spouse in Canada who's a student, IRCC is, if they pick up the application now, 18 months later, that individual is probably towards the end of that program of study. That means their spouse is not eligible for the spouse open work permit anymore, because you need a certain amount on your study permit. Although it's not a requirement of the program, but we've seen IRCC officers refusing applications on those grounds that the spouse, the international student spouse in Canada, doesn't have enough time left on their course. So, their spouse is not eligible for a spouse open work permit. So we have seen, there's a saying in immigration, or in law actually, that delayed justice is, delayed decision is delayed justice. And that's exactly what is happening with the applicants from all over the world right now, because the applications are not being processed. Justice is being denied to them because they're not even eligible for those programs. I had a client who I submitted an application for in March 2020. Their spouse became a permanent resident in Canada now. So they're actually not even eligible for that open work permit anymore. So things have really changed over the year. In these 18 months, people's situations have changed. Some people were in a NOC-B position that was a requirement for a spouse open work permit, but now they don't have that job because they've lost that job. And when immigration actually picks up that application, they don't feel that that person is eligible, so they refuse the application. So there are a lot of wrong decisions also that are coming because of the delayed processing.
Mm-hmm. So as you just mentioned that, of course, the delay has been there, but in spite of such delays, Canada has been ranked as top nation for immigration and investment, according to a report by Nation Brands Index 2021. What, according to you, are the factors that makes Canada such a desirable place when it comes to immigration?
I'm going to be very raw and very brutally honest here, okay? And I am very popular for being brutally honest. People from outside Canada, especially underdeveloping countries, they just want a better future, right? They want a better future in the sense they want better lifestyle, they want better education for their children, they want better opportunities to earn more money, to have a good lifestyle and everything, right? So Canada definitely gives all of that, right? We have a good education system, there's free education for children, it's a safe country, it's obviously the the quality of living is absolutely wonderful, especially as compared to developing countries. So people outside Canada only consider those factors. We all know Canada needs people, that's a fact. Canada has an aging population. So Canada will, and because of their easy and liberal immigration policies, people outside Canada or all over the world obviously keep Canada at number one spot, because they know, one, Canada has liberal immigration policies. There are so many programs. As we speak right now, there are almost 80 to 90 programs under which one can come to Canada, depending on their background, eligibility, education, language abilities, and everything. And then on top of that, obviously, Canada is a beautiful country. It's a great country to live in, to grow your family in. It's secure, it's safe. So it'll always remain on that top list for immigrants, potential immigrants, and I don't foresee the immigration policies getting any difficult, at least for the next 5 years, because Canada desperately needs people, especially now after COVID, because one, we've lost a lot of people. Two, I mean, Canada has given out so much money. They need to recover on those costs, right? In the last 2 years, the amount of money that they've given out in various benefits, they boom on immigration, right? Immigration is their major source of revenue. It's the it's on which the economy thrives. So immigration is not going anywhere.
The Weekly Voice, leader in South Asian news.
So, let's talk about the changes in the Canadian immigration system. I read that the Canadian immigration is making major changes to the NOC in 2022, and a new system called TEER is coming into play. So, what is this system and why is it important?
All right. So, the changes. So, what happens is every 10 years, ESTC has a mandate that they need to do their research on the new NOC codes, on the new occupations, that are out there. As we know that, a decade is a very long period. As the economy evolves, as the world evolves, as the job industry evolves, we've seen that there are many new positions that come into into the industry. Giving you an example, we've seen over the last couple of years, social media has really become extremely big amongst the new generation, and even all generations, I would say. So there are many positions within social media that were not there 10 years ago. Right? For example, I'll give you an example, and I love to talk with examples like TikTok. So, or for Instagram Reels, right? There is a specific position for moderators, content reviewers, right? So there are these moderators who will always constantly be on the lookout for content that is not appropriate for their website or for the app. And then as soon as it is reported or flagged, they take it down, right? So that kind of a position was not available before, but now we've seen that there are many new occupations that have come to the surface. As a result, there was a need to add those occupations and give a particular knock to those occupations. If you go find a knock code for a TikTok moderator or a content reviewer, you will not find a knock code. Yeah. So that is why they have to make those constant changes, adapt to the industry and the occupations in the job market, and get those knock codes out. So what they're really doing right now is that they have done a thorough research on what are the kind of jobs that are available. There are some knock codes that are currently clubbed with other knocks, but then they have their own job duties, independent job duties now, that they need a knock code of their own. So they've revamped the entire system based on this education, skills, years of experience, as the skill set, and created a different system from what we have right now. So currently we have a 4-digit knock code system, and they've changed it to a 5-digit knock code system based on a tier level, which could be on education, skill set, experience, trades, and all of that. So we are expecting IRCC. So ESTC has already announced the knock codes. So we have the table on the website, but IRCC is expected to implement it sometime in fall of 2022. So we still don't know from IRCC how they're going to implement it. How is it going to affect people? Because there'll be no more knock code O, A, B, C, Ds. There'll be knock code 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. So we don't know what knock codes will be, like what digits will be under express entry, what will be considered as skilled, but IRCC is yet to announce those changes, and I would only say that we should all wait until we hear further updates on that from IRCC.
And I understand that you have said that we should wait for the updates, but I still want to ask, like, how these changes will impact immigrants and foreign workers.
I personally don't think there'll be a drastic change. It's not going to affect majority, because immigration doesn't work like that, right? Immigration wouldn't, like when we're dealing with the government, they don't make drastic sudden changes. It's going to be a very subtle implementation of this program, and it's not going to be in a way that majority of the people will be impacted. Maybe a small amount of people will be impacted if, you know, the knocks have been moved from, let's say right now we're saying that there's rumors going around that few knocks will be moved from knock B to knock C. I personally don't think so that will happen. Maybe people will have, some of the occupations will have their own knock codes. There'll be change of knock codes for people, but I personally still don't think that ESDC will say that a position that was considered as a skilled knock code before is not a skilled knock code anymore. I don't think so they're going to say that. Maybe they'll add more knock codes to the skilled occupations, but they're not going to suddenly take it out. But again, this is my understanding, logical understanding. It could be different. It could be, I mean, there could be some knocks that will not be eligible for express entry, but again, IRCC has not said anything about it. So I wouldn't want, and this is exactly what I tell all my clients to, don't panic just yet. IRCC will give us enough time to, you know, get adapted to that. They will not suddenly say from tomorrow onwards, we're going to use this knock code system.
Yeah.
And we've also seen a lot of changes, like, I don't know how often do you use the portals, the government portals for immigration, but we've seen that most of these portals have been going major changes. They're always in maintenance and everything. So I am assuming that they're probably bringing up these changes. And then once they've incorporated those changes on the portals, they will then announce that, you know, what are the changes, how is it going to impact people, and when will they start, you know, using that new system, the knock code system. I'm assuming that it should be announced somewhere in the new year.
Oh, okay. So, well, while we are on the knock codes, I want to mention that the data from the Government of Canada shows that permanent resident arrival admissions soared in the month of September, and the country saw around 45,000 permanent residents coming in Canada in September, which is like 19% up from the month before. And this represents an increase of 200% compared to a year ago. So what do you have to say on that?
Absolutely. This was expected, right? So starting March 18th, anybody who was not a permanent resident was not allowed to come to Canada, right? Even people who were approved of permanent residence had COPRs, the confirmation of permanent residence in hand, but were not allowed to enter Canada. There were people who were desperately waiting for, especially people who were approved of permanent residence outside Canada, desperately waiting to enter Canada, because this is what they had been waiting for so long. So this was absolutely expected, that as soon as IRCC allows people, so on September 7th, people with, you know, confirmation of permanent residence in hand and permanent residents who had not yet landed in Canada were allowed back. So it was absolutely expected for them to come back. Plus, IRCC also gradually started renewing the expired COPRs of people who had not yet landed. So all of those permanent residents started coming in to complete the landing procedures and to, you know, land as immigrants in Canada. So it was totally expected. And we're only going to see an increase in these numbers going forward, because IRCC is gradually issuing COPRs and PR, you know, renewals to people who are outside Canada, who were stuck outside Canada. So we'll only see an increase in number month on month from here on until they've cleared all the backlog.
And there are reports about the coveted TR to PR pathway coming again. Is it true? Because I've been hearing this a lot.
So I personally wouldn't comment on that. If it could come, we don't know. IRCC doesn't disclose anything. I know this rumor started from when our past immigration minister Marco Mendocino announced that, you know, he will be, you know, he will consider extending the healthcare stream because it had not reached its allocation. And then he also mentioned that if there's another program like this in the future, they will consider including refugee claimants in it. But he never mentioned anywhere in that interview that he will be reopening a similar program. So, as we say that, rumors have wings, he just blew up from there and people started misconstruing what he had said. But there was never an announcement by IRCC or even a hint by IRCC that it's something like that is coming. So I personally don't like to give in into such rumors. I like to wait until an announcement is made by IRCC because it unnecessarily increases hope for many people.
Yes.
But having said that, while I'm on air, I mean I'm being recorded, I would definitely say my recommendation will always be that keep your documentation ready. You should always have all your paperwork in place, get your IELTS and everything done, because you never know. I mean, this last year has been so unusual, and everything has been so unpredictable that we can expect anything from IRCC. So be prepared. But having said that, I'm assuming that now the borders have opened up, we might see something happening big for maybe FSW applicants, because those people have not been able to come to Canada. Like there have been no draws all of 2021. So plus we have a new immigration minister now. We haven't seen any new updates from the minister yet since he assumed the role, since he assumed power. So we don't know what his outlook towards immigration is. Is he extremely liberal about immigration policies? Is he going to go all out like Marco Mendicino did? Or is he going to be a little bit, he's going to hold back? So we don't know. I think we have to first see a few of his moves in the right direction, and maybe then we'll be able to make those assumptions. But for now, I think we all should just keep our
fingers crossed,
mouth zipped and fingers crossed.
Print, digital, radio, and video. You choose the media. We are the Voice Media Group. And you mentioned about the SFW express entry laws, and I cannot end this interview without asking what you think about it. Like, people have been waiting for it since forever. And what are your guesses on that?
Again, if I say anything, I'll only be fueling to the rumors, because again, there's no concrete information from anywhere. But if I have to make an assumption, I'm thinking that maybe they'll only start doing those draws in the new year. We could expect another one draw for Canadian experience class or two draws for Canadian experience class applicants this year. And then maybe the FSW draws will start happening from next year. And why I say that, I'd like to also say that, is because IRCC already is dealing with a huge amount of backlog, as we've also found out, for applicants who are outside Canada right now. CC applications are being processed very quickly, right? 2 months, anywhere between 40 days to 6 months is an average timeline, I'd say. But people outside Canada, those applications are not being processed, and there's a huge backlog on IRCC. So I am assuming that IRCC would first, and probably that's the right thing to do as well, to first clear off that backlog, right? And if they've cleared off that backlog, and I'm not saying 100% cleared off, but get to a point where it's manageable. Right now, it's like, I don't even know how they're dealing with so many files and all that, the negativity that they're getting, the backlash they're getting from everywhere, from all corners, right? So I think they need to first figure out, and that's what I think. They would first clear off all the backlog, majority of it, and then they would start doing the FSW draws, which could be anywhere in the beginning of the new year. That's my assumption. I could be totally wrong, but that's what I think would happen.
And finally, Shafoli, what advice would you want to give to our viewers who are gearing up for PR applications, any kind of stream, but what would be your advice?
So my advice would be, just keep your documentation ready, keep at it, get into the express entry pool if you're eligible, get your IELTS and everything done as soon as you graduate, as soon as you've completed your experience. There's absolutely no need to wait that you'll do it, because we've seen in the last year, all those people who were, delaying these things and who were procrastinating, they all suffered at the end of the day, couldn't apply for TR to PR or whatever. So absolutely get those things moving, get those things done, keep your documentation ready, have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, and just keep doing your job. And another big thing that I tell all my clients, and I'm going to tell all your viewers as well, PR is not your ultimate goal. That is your short-term goal. So yes, that is your fast, that is your first next goal to achieve, but then don't make this as the ultimate thing for you. Also work towards your career, make the right choices, don't get into trouble. Look at all of those things. And yeah, keep at it, keep working towards your goals. And I wish you all good luck. And I hope everybody gets to live their Canadian dream soon.
Thank you, Shafali, for talking to us and taking out your time and giving this wonderful insight on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Pragya.
India and Canada have enjoyed a great trade relationship over the years, thanks to the massive numbers of immigration levels from India to Canada. And to further strengthen this bond, the Indo-Canadian Chamber of Commerce organized a meet and greet session in Toronto this week, which was attended by the MPs and MPPs. Watch now.
I didn't know we were announcing it today. Okay, hold on.
It is my pleasure to be your MC for this evening. We have an exciting program this evening for you that includes speeches from our leaders.
Today is a very special evening for us.
But as the world actually continues to face unprecedented challenges and uncertainty because of COVID-19, Ontario looks forward to continuing to build on this relationship.
Use us in any way that we can to help you and all of your memberships, because when Ontario prospers, our business owners here prosper, everyone prospers, and making sure we develop those strong ties from nation to nation is something that is so critical.
Well, they also want to ensure that there are adequate investments in things like housing and our roads and all of the other good things that help make our province successful.
The ties between the countries are so strong, and the trade is going everywhere, from everywhere to everywhere. And it's a win-win situation to Canada and India in the same time.
Every time I came here, every time I looked around, and I see one gender more than the other gender. So let's put it this way. We have 50% strength here. Bring in the other gender. We are multiplying our number, but we are multiplying the effort also.
We met with them all, and I'll tell you, it was really inspiring. And what's so great about it is, and I made so many connections here at the ICCC over the years, but when you go over there and talk about all the great reasons why we should partner, and you plant the seed, and then you get to see the results of making that kind of a trip, when you see Infosys and the 500 jobs that are going to be created in the tech hub here in Toronto, it's fantastic.
I take this opportunity to thank the members of our audience who have found time to come to participate in today's program. Before we conclude and break for dinner, I request all of you to ensure that you have given us your emails and cell phone numbers. Thank you, and have yourself a great evening. Thank you.
Today it is the 552nd birth anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the first of the 10 Sikh Gurus. Gurpurab is one of the most auspicious festivals in Sikhism that is celebrated all over the globe. On this auspicious occasion, the Honorable Consul General Apurva Srivastava shares her wishes with the viewers.
Gurpurab de mauke de ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਖ ਲੱਖ ਵਧਾਈਆਂ. On this auspicious occasion of Gurpurab, I share my heartfelt greetings to all of you. Guru Nanak Dev Ji taught us ethical and compassionate ways to lead a life of satisfaction and fulfillment. He remains an icon of truth, compassion, and righteousness. On this special occasion, I pray that the light of wisdom and humanity led by Guru Nanak Dev Ji guide us all to build a more harmonious, peaceful, and compassionate world. On this occasion, let us rededicate ourselves to fulfilling Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji's desire of creating a just, inclusive, and harmonious society. Namaskar.
And it's time for our next report that will enlighten you more about Gurpurab and the story behind it.
जब आध सच जुगाड़ सच है भी सच नानक होसी भी सच सोचे सोच न होवे जे सोची रखवा चुप चुप न होवे जे लाए रहा रवता भूखिया भूख न उतरे जे बनना करिया पार सहस्यान पालक होए ताइक न चलना कि बस चेरा कि वो पूरे टूटे पाँव हुकुम रजाए चलना नानक लिखिया
So that was it in this week's show. Hope you like our video. Write in the comment section to let us know what you think of this content. And don't forget to watch us every Friday as we will continue to bring exciting content for you. Thanks for watching.